In a world still chasing economic justice, one voice rises to inspire change. From the streets to the boardrooms, from ideas to real action, Cornell Cruz Jr. invites you to listen, learn, and transform. Come from the people, the community, always present, always pushing forward. Together we build opportunity, we build trust, and we build a just economy for all. This is the Just Economy Project, where equity has a sound, and the future begins with you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Just Economy Podcast. Today we got a special guest from the Get Red Foundation, and we'll get right to her in a second. The Just Economy Podcast is sponsored by the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. I'm your host, Cornell Cruz Jr., the Executive Director. The Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida is a statewide membership organization, and what we do is ensure that the banks reinvest into the community per the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. That includes philanthropy, small business loans, mortgages, affordable housing, and social services. So we try to make sure that the banks do it to the letter of the law, as well as educate the community on the Community Reinvestment Act, as well as government and the nonprofits. So we're really, really happy to be here today. We have a couple of announcements. One, finally, people have been asking me, when are the scores going to come out for the grants? We're working on that this weekend. We've got the scores from the reviewers. We're working on that this weekend, and we'll be announcing next week all the awardees. If for some reason you're not awarded this particular time, please understand that without you, I would not be able to go back to those financial institutions. So you are all important as far as submitting an application. So we greatly, greatly appreciate it. So today, we're going to be talking to the founder of the Get Red Foundation. Her name is Liudmila Esquerdo. And I know I'm screwing it up. I knew I was going to do it because I was concentrating too hard. I was trying to do it too hard. Mila, tell us your name so I can make up for my mistake.
So my full name is Liudmila Esquerdo, and you could call me Mila.
Okay.
So that's simple.
So I'm gonna be calling her Mila this whole podcast because I dislike truly messing up people's names. Mila is the founder of the Get Red Foundation. We're going to talk a lot about the Get Red Foundation here in a second, and she's going to tell us how she got into it. I'd like to welcome you, Mila, to the Just Economy Podcast. And as usual, I always like to start off with people's histories. I love history, so I love to hear, how did you get here?
It's a great question. So in 1995, I was dancing in college, and I started to become very tired, fatigued, and I was getting bruising all over my legs and my body, and I did not know what was happening. So went into the doctor. He, did some blood work. He says to my mom, get your daughter into a hospital ASAP. When I got to the hospital, they said, listen, your daughter's blood count is very low. My platelets and my white and my red blood cells were very, very low. He said, I don't know how your daughter is dancing. He actually said, I don't know how she's walking, much less dancing.
Wow.
So I had, the normal blood count, platelet blood count, just so you have an idea, is 150,000. I had about 5,000. So it was a very long journey. I was only 19 years old. What happens when a person is diagnosed with a rare blood disorder, there are not many options. There are many options for those that are diagnosed with a blood disorder that involves cancer, because there's a lot of cancer research and treatment. But when it comes to a rare blood disorder such as the one I had, which is known as acute aplastic anemia or severe aplastic anemia, the options are not many. Just so that you understand, the diagnosis of aplastic anemia is 1 in a million at that time.
Wow.
That was 30 years ago. Today, it is 2 in a million. So it's still very rare. There is not enough research, and there is just not enough organizations out there really champion for these sorts of diagnosis.
So Miller, is it a hereditary? Is it?
It is not hereditary at all. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why Get Red exists is because there's just not enough research to even know what caused my rare blood disorder. To this day, we don't know what caused it.
We just know that you start feeling symptoms and went in. Luckily, you went in and got tested and didn't ignore them. I think is key, right?
I will say that when you're 19 years old, the last thing that you imagine is that you're going to be diagnosed with something like this. I didn't even know something like this existed at that time. So I actually did ignore it for a couple of years. I was already starting to feel fatigued a few years before. I had had an episode where I had passed out in high school. So there were some signs, but I'm Hispanic. My parents are Cuban. They're like, levántate y sigue. That means get up and get going. Like there's no time for this. So that was really a difficult time for me because I've always been a go-go person and I always been very involved in community and so for me having to pause my life for 1 year was difficult.
So I know that you founded the Get Red Foundation. Was it? And I know folks are usually inspired to do something, especially concerning around health. Or practically anything when we start a nonprofit, but we're usually inspired by something. So this inspired you to start this foundation to get more knowledge out there?
Yeah, so very early on, at the age of 19, 20, I knew that if I were to survive this, because the bone marrow transplant process is a very difficult one. There are a lot of different possibilities for you to lose your life, for you to go through, different medical obstacles that exist during a bone marrow transplant process. So I decided that once I was cured, I would eventually dedicate my life to helping others. And so, at 21, I got married, and I wasn't expecting to have children, but I was able, by the miracle of God, is to have my daughter at 23 and my son at 26, and I will say that they're both perfectly healthy. But life got busy, had kids, then my career and, marriage. And so, now last year, March of 2024 is when I finally decided to take the leap and open the nonprofit organization, just seeing the needs that are out there and how in 30 years, the awareness was just not raised enough.
Because I got to admit, I've never heard of this until you spoke when we were at lunch the other day. I had never heard of this disease. And it's amazing how it just creeps up on you. That had to be, for a teenager especially, that's a lot to go through, Mila.
It's a lot. I will tell you that there's other folks that we're helping that have it worse. Because I had my parents, I had a network. I had my sister who was a perfect match, right? So that was huge. But there's a lot of folks that don't have caretakers. They don't have a match. And they don't even have medical insurance or resources to go through this. So, and I in doing some research and looking at your website, I saw that your sister was your donor, and I want to get to her. Mm-hmm. But I want to get to what is the mission of Get Red? The mission of Get Red is very clear. It's to raise awareness for the need of bone marrow and stem cell donors. And why the name Get Red? So actually, that's a God thing. I was, for a time, I lived in Boca, and I was driving, and I was listening to Joel Osteen. This was actually 2018. And I always knew that I wanted to start a nonprofit, and then I didn't have a name for it. And all of a sudden, I was listening to this Christian radio station, and the Lord just starts downloading all of the details, the name of the organization, how we're going to put together, the mission, the vision, getting a stage where we're able to put together performances, choreographies, telling the story of a survivor. So it was all very, very detailed, and it's been a beautiful journey since. Well, that's great, though. That's great to hear. So is it how hard is it to make people aware of this particular condition? Extremely hard. It's extremely difficult because even in a simple blood donation, people don't understand how necessary it is for you to go out and give blood. There's a shortage of platelets, which a lot of the blood disorders need. The patients that have a blood disorder need platelets. And so imagine telling folks, I need you to become a bone marrow donor. They don't understand what that entails. So our goal is to really go out to every college, every wellness event, every church, and make sure that folks are getting registered in the bone marrow donor registry so that they can do a simple cheek swab and see if perhaps they can save someone's life who's been waiting for a long time.
Okay, so I take it that's different from my donorship on my driver's license, right?
Correct. Very different.
And is that something that I noticed on your website, I can actually go to your website and become a donor. So is that the only place that we can do that?
So we have partnered with the Gift of Life. The Gift of Life is actually headquartered in Boca. We've gone there. We've visited their center. We've met another survivor who is the founder of the Gift of Life. Actually, he had his bone marrow transplant at the same time as I did, 1995, July of 1995. And his mother, because they were a minority, really went above and beyond to find a donor. And so that's how the Gift of Life was born. They are our partners, and they send us all of the stem cell kits. They have the research lab. Everything is located in Boca. It's a beautiful center, and they do an amazing job in, connecting the bone marrow donor to the bone marrow recipient.
Is it difficult to recruit folks for this to be donors? Is that difficult?
It is difficult because people have a misconception. They think that it's painful. They think that they're going to have to go through some sort of surgery. And if you've checked out our social media, you can follow us at Get Red Foundation. That's Get Red with 2 Ds. It shows you what the process looks like. It's very similar to a blood donation. You sit in a chair, they take out your blood, they process it, and then they put it back. So it's not as painful as people may think.
Okay. So I want you to emphasize that it's not painful as people think.
It's not.
I think a lot of people think bone marrow, they suck out all your bone marrow and you're laying in the hospital for weeks on end, but it sounds like that is definitely not the case.
That is not the case. Actually, again, on our social media, my sister explains from her own perspective as a donor what she went through. In some cases, depending on how much blood needs to be taken out, they may do it from, like a simple blood donation, or they may take it out of a different area in your body. But at the end of the day, you recover the same day, and your blood just comes right back into your organism. So it's not something that you're going to be out of work or not able to function for days. No.
So I can actually do it over a weekend and no issues, right? It'd be good to go to work on Monday morning.
No issues, and you may save some lives.
Thank you. This is key, saving some lives. I think that we in this day and age, we spend too much time worrying about ourselves and not worrying about the community and worrying about others within the community. I'm so glad to have Mila on this to talk about this donor, because I'm going to sign up. As I stated, I went to your website. I hope I'm not too old, but I'm going to sign up to be a donor. I'm a donor on my driver's license, but I think this is just as important when you talk about how the person can be afflicted with this, and to not know it. Is there an age, a particular age that it strikes, or it just?
That's a great question. So for the bone marrow, the person that's going through the rare blood disorder or need for a bone marrow, there is no age restriction. It happens to anyone from a baby to the elderly. There's really no age in particular. However, as a donor, the reason why we want to be able to have a swabbing table at every college, at every wellness event, is because the younger the individual that's the donor, right, the higher possibilities of having healthy cells.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's why we really want to partner with the colleges and all of the wellness events, because we want to make sure that whatever we do collect, the possibility of that person saving a life is greater.
Okay, so you just answered my next question, was the target age for the donor. So the target age for your donor, you're looking for young people in the college in college age and so forth.
Right. Ideally 18 to about 34
Okay.
is the ideal age.
Okay, you just knocked me out the box.
You can still donate. You never know. We have had cases.
I'm hurt deep in here.
No, we have had cases where a 60-year-old adult has saved the life of a 10-year-old child. So you never know who needs your bone marrow. And like me, I'm Hispanic, right? So a lot of Hispanics throughout the years, they don't realize how important this is. So a lot of us minorities don't even get the opportunity of finding a donor because people just don't understand the need.
But that goes the same with blood as well. As minorities, we don't donate nearly as much as we should, unless you're in something that was required. When I was in the military, it was like how can I put this? It was like an order, but not an order. You know what I mean? It was we did it. We were told that okay, we need to give blood, and we gave blood. There was no question. So as you go out into the community, I'm assuming you have to educate those folks who you're trying to recruit as donors. You have to educate them on this, correct?
Yes. So a large part of what we do is education and raising awareness. The other part of what we do is getting the resources over to those that need it. Like I said earlier, a bone marrow transplant is a long journey. One of the patients that we just helped, she's 32 years old. She was diagnosed when she was pregnant with her baby. So imagine, being pregnant and being diagnosed. Now her baby is 4, and she had not found a match until she met Get Red. When we met her, we were able to just get her the proper insurance to be able to get her a bone marrow transplant. Because if you don't have the proper insurance, the bone marrow transplant centers can't. It's a very costly process. It's over $1 million to get a bone marrow transplant.
And it's not covered by It's not covered by typical insurance. Is there a special insurance you have to get?
Well, some folks don't have insurance. Like this one young lady that I'm speaking about, she did not have insurance. So we had to get her insurance. We had to get her into the center, which we were able to get her into the Moffitt Memorial. And Moffitt has a partnership, and they have an amazing bone marrow transplant unit. My doctor, Dr. Hugo Fernandez, who is on our board, who did my transplant, is the head. He is the director of that center. And so I was able to get her into the Moffitt Center. Then there's the whole journey of, finding a caretaker for your children. The husband has to work several jobs to be able to take care of the household income expenses, because you cannot work during this season. So there's a number of hardships and different levels of needs and resources that people just don't ignore. Aside from the being a bone marrow donor, there's just so many other needs that people don't even imagine exist.
Okay, so it sounds like you're providing a whole lot of support for those folks who are going through this
Yes.
transplant.
Yes, we provide also emotional support. We have partnered with some organizations that offer, psychological assistance. We want to eventually have a dance center where people can come and do some healing, maybe take it to the hospitals. Our goal is that when someone sees Get Red, the brand, the red butterfly, they know that there's a story of rebirth there. Our vision is to see the red butterfly become a global brand, just like the pink ribbon is for cancer. Mm-hmm. The red butterfly would be for a bone marrow transplant survivor. Okay,
I look forward to wearing one of those one day. I'm
gonna bring you a hat.
Yeah, by all means, please do. So, and you mentioned something earlier. You said the woman was pregnant. We discussed earlier that it's not genetic, but when she found out that she was pregnant during this time, is there a concern about it being passed to the baby?
There are many concerns, because in her case, she did have a cancer diagnosis. She had actually several diagnoses. It was not just one. So there was many concerns. As a matter of fact, she had a first child that she had to have a C-section, and the second child she was not able to have a C-section. So she had to have a natural childbirth. So luckily the baby is 100% healthy, but it is a very scary and long journey. It's been 5 years
Wow.
of this. Yeah, she first had CAR T stem cell transplant, which is her own cells, and we are praying for that she is cured. But if this does not work, then she still has to go through another through the bone marrow transplant process. So it's a long journey for many.
So, and you mentioned something earlier that struck me, as we, especially these days, we're fighting about medical care and healthcare in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get the insurance? You can't get the insurance for this until after you've been diagnosed. Just a question for you, because I mean, what you saying is 2 in 1 million, right? That can get it.
For aplastic anemia.
Yeah.
But we also help other rare blood disorders aside from aplastic anemia.
Okay.
Many other blood cancers.
So can we, from the insurance side of the house, can we purchase insurance against this before we're ever diagnosed, or do we have to wait, or would a person have to wait until they're actually diagnosed?
Typically, it's always best to have insurance, but
Sure.
in some cases where you're not employed or you don't have steady income, it's very hard to have that in place. So we find that a lot of our patients are in need of medical insurance. So we've been able to partner with an organization that's all they do is the marketplace insurance.
Gotcha.
So she's been able to help us get insurance for these folks to then get them into a bone marrow transplant center.
Because, and I'm sorry to harp on it, I'm just trying to understand.
No problem.
So in order to get into a program, a bone marrow transplant program, they have to have insurance in order to get into that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. To cover the bone marrow.
Correct. To cover the whole process of the bone marrow transplantation, which is a long one.
Got you.
Because in order to be able to have a bone marrow transplant, you first have to your body has to be prepared. So there's chemotherapy. There's a lot of things that have to happen before you can even get a bed in a bone marrow transplant treatment center.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Sure.
Let's talk about that. You're saying you have to get prepared. So can you give me some of the things that the body has to go through in order to prepare you to be a recipient? And a follow-up question, 1A is, there has to be a match, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when I had my bone marrow transplant, I started to hear that there was other patients that were having the bone marrow transplant, but it was not 100% match. So at that time, if you were like a 50% match or a 60% match, you could still have that transplant. Like I can receive your bone marrow, right? But because we're not 100% matched, my body has to kill any little piece of bone marrow that's left, has to be completely killed. Otherwise, my body will reject your bone marrow. My bone marrow will reject yours. So what happens is they have to kill anything that's left. Even if it's a little bit, they have to kill it completely. So it's kind of like killing you. Your body you have to be prepared to go through that. So there's a lot of different possibilities that go on in this process to prepare your body to be completely ready to receive the bone marrow. Even if it was my sister, the same thing happened.
That was my next question. So even with your sister, you still had to prepare, because we're all a little different. I don't care how close we are as relatives. We're all just a tad. Yes. There's something in there, a hair that's different, or something that's different, right? Yes. So as the recipient, you had to prepare your body, right, in order to receive.
The doctors, yes. So they give you a very intense chemo. This chemo that when they finally get you a bed in a bone marrow transplant unit, by that time, they've already collected the donor cells and they've already processed them. So I come into the center, they put me in a isolated room, and they start to give me very intense chemo. This chemo is so intense that my hair fell out from one day to the next. So it wasn't like a slow process. It was like chunks of hair were coming out because it's that fast. So my body has to be ready to go through that in order to live, to then be able to get everything, all this, kind of like imagine bringing all your cells down to zero to then be able to accept my sister's bone marrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went through a lot.
You have no idea how much people go through in this journey. It's a hard journey. And I think people really ignore it because they just don't know.
You don't know.
And that is my job, is
Yeah.
to let people know how hard of a journey it is.
Well, and that sounds like that's the mission of Get Red, to not only let us know how hard the journey is, and prepare us for the journey and provide those support services, but also to put general knowledge out there and understanding of how this disease affects our body. So I'm sorry, but one last question on your sister. So,
these are great questions, by the way.
Okay, so
great questions.
I'm nosy.
I like it.
I'm one of those. My object in life is to know everything.
I like it. Me too.
So, the donor, did she have to go through a lot physically as well?
My sister,
Yeah.
It was one morning. She went in. They took out the stem cell, the blood, and then she was done by the same day.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
But you can hear her interview. Check out Get Red Foundation.
We definitely will, and we'll post it. We'll make sure we post it on our website.
Thank you.
Um,
One thing I wanted to say is that when the person receiving the bone marrow's body is finally at that 0 number where you could receive the new one, there's something called graft versus host. What graft versus host means is that the person receiving that bone marrow can reject that bone marrow that they're receiving. So once you're done with the bone marrow transplant process, you're not done. There's still a long recovery that comes after. So I just want to make that clear, because sometimes people think, oh, you had the bone marrow, you're done. No,
you're good to go.
You have to. You're still isolated. You have to have meals that are independent, individually packaged. You can't go out into the general public without wearing a mask. Like, you're still very much sheltered for about a year, depending on the severity of your bone marrow.
That long? A year?
Yes. So for me, I was diagnosed in May of 1995. I had my transplant in July. Finally started to work July 24th of 95. And then I was not able to go back to school or work until the following year, January of 1996. So it took about a solid year to really like start to see my hair grow back and all of that.
Never knew it took that long. I've obviously heard of bone marrow transplants, but I didn't know all that was involved. So you being a guest here is enlightening me and telling me a lot. So when you said earlier that your body can actually reject, even though you could have rejected your sister's. Mm-hmm. So what happens then? Do you search out another donor?
So there's medication that is used after the bone marrow transplant that's the one thing I will tell you has improved over these years, is the medication that's out there.
Okay.
Still, there's just not enough research for the rare blood disorders. And that's one of our goals if we eventually receive funding, is not only to help the patients receive the bone marrow that they need, receive the economic support, resources, meal train, supplements that they need, the caretaker, all the things, but also to fund the research that's needed for these rare blood disorders. Because I would really like to know what causes these rare blood disorders. So
I'm with you. I want to know what causes every disease that we have.
Exactly.
Because I think that leads to possibly a cure or something that we can avoid it altogether. Let's take a break, and we'll come right back.